Warning, the Renegade Recruiter is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious recruitment, staffing, and search business owner who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Terry Edwards. The Renegade Recruiter is unleashed.
Hello. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter, and welcome to another episode of Renegade Recruiter Unleashed. And of course, we're joined by our co-host, Drew. Drew, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. And our guest today is Jason Treu. Jason, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's a real pleasure. We're looking forward to this. We were talking about earlier, so we're really looking forward to rock and roll and find out all about you, Jason.
Well, so, I'm looking forward to it too.
Excellent. So that's good to go. So tell us a bit about your business, please, Jason. Exactly what you do.
Sure, I'm a business and executive coach. So typically, corporate executives come to me, or entrepreneurs, and they're stuck in their life on something, or something's not going right. Maybe the passion's gone out in their business. Maybe they're having problems in management or leadership or culture. Sometimes some of my clients come to me because they've had a liquidity event, meaning they've come into a substantial amount of money and they don't really know what to do in their life, or perhaps they're just really in a negative spiral in their life, right? They may be having problems at home, problems at work, and they just don't really know where to go. And then typically those relationships transition over time to where I'm sort of their chief of staff. They come to me with really any problem that I help and work with them on. So it's fun, and I've got some great people that I work with, and I've had a lot of interesting situations.
Excellent. And do you work with clients just in the States, Jason?
I do have a couple clients outside the U.S., in Europe, and actually in Australia and New Zealand. So,
right, so worldwide then.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter where someone is, because these days with Skype and the phone, you can reach anyone really anytime. So
yeah. And where is it that you're based, Jason?
Dallas, Texas. So it's a wonderful, wonderful city. I live right near downtown, so I love it.
Awesome. And tell us a bit more about your background. How did you sort of get into what you do now?
Well, I think like most entrepreneurs, it's a pretty windy road. I went to law school and I got my master's in communications, and then I decided I didn't want to practice law. I was actually interviewing in downtown New York City, and the last question I ask every interview, because I figured I was told to ask kind of an easy question at the end of it that people could talk about their experiences, there's a law firm. Well, I asked a very naive question, which was, are you happy? And what I got from responses were people that basically were telling me they were not happy, because after I asked the question, it seemed like everyone would be shocked that would be a question I would ask them. And I thought it was a pretty normal question. Well, when you ask like 30 people and 30 out of 30 sort of fail to convince you that they're happy, you really start to think, do you really want to be doing this the rest of your life? And what makes you think that you can do something that 30 people can't do? So I was like, I need to be doing something else. And I decided to go to Silicon Valley and work in technology, because I love technology. And I got to work, with Steve Jobs at Apple. I got an opportunity to meet Mark Cuban when his company was acquired. I got to work with a lot of really well-known CEOs, venture capitalists, other people. And it was a fantastic opportunity. And then, decided to, after the crash in 2000, things for the next couple of years weren't great. And I had an opportunity. My mom actually moved from Chicago to Dallas. And I was like, I kind of like Dallas. And, it'd be great to be around my family a little bit, because I had moved away when I was 18. So I decided to come here, and, it was wonderful being here. And I actually then was approached by a couple friends to help their friends move from one big city to another. And I was like, sure. I mean, I've got a pretty big social life that I built down here, and, I love people, so I helped them. And, basically within 90 days, both of them had created amazing lives in different cities, and they'd made transitions, and they were more successful in their jobs than they had been in the past. So I thought to myself, boy, I might have something here, right, in the back of my head. And I approached someone that I knew that had an existing business, and then, we just created some products and services over some time, and then we just had a big falling out, and directions were really going in different directions. And then I just quit my job, and then just started all this.
Wow. I've got to ask you a question, Jason. When you went to Silicon Valley and you were being interviewed, did you ask them if they were happy?
Yeah, and people were pretty I did, because people were pretty passionate there right now, because they were starting businesses and they were smaller, and there was a lot of intensity, in Silicon Valley at that time.
Yeah.
And it was a whole different. It's kind of like when you walk in a room and you can feel the energy in the room. You know that people are passionate about what they're doing and how they feel about things. So that was, interesting enough to be around, because I'd never really felt that in a job, and it was noticeably different than you walk into like a law firm. It just is not the same level of intensity and passion that people had. And so for me, I felt like that was a great place, to be at the time. And it was, my first real job, because I had gone from undergrad right into grad school. So I didn't work for anyone in between. So I really hadn't had any exposure other than internships, right, to like working.
Yeah. Excellent. True.
So, Jason, tell us something about you that a lot of people don't know. So, an interesting or funny story.
I guess one thing, back when I was in law school, I was working at this gym that I'd found off campus that I liked, and there a guy came in and started teaching like a boxing class, and I was like, this seems kind of fun, something different. And he was a recovering addict, and so it was just an extra thing that you could get, but even at that time, it was really inexpensive to do it. So I ended up taking it, and I ended up getting along with him really well. And he was a really good boxer. In fact, he was like a sparring partner back with Mike Tyson.
Wow.
And he just, fell in some hard times, and that was just unfortunate. And he's just trying to, make it back. So I basically trained with him, and, actually fought in front of people and boxed. And he convinced me to do it, and we trained for like 8 weeks to do this, and it was pretty fun. I ended up winning, but it was pretty scary to go in a ring, because the person I fought had a couple fights, and this is the first time I had ever gotten in front of a ring. It wasn't, it was a couple hundred people, so there wasn't, that wasn't that many, but nonetheless, that's a lot more than zero.
Yeah.
So it was pretty intense, and it was fun. So.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask, what weight did you box at?
I was like, at that time, I think it was like 160.
Right. Excellent. Now, how long did you do that for?
I only did it that one time in a ring, because I didn't have the time really to do it, and it was over the summer. So although I was busy, I still had time, right?
Yeah.
And having to train that much was hard, and then it's so nerve-wracking training for something like that too, because inside of your head you're like worried every day, like, am I going to be in good enough shape to go? Because it's not that long. It was like 3 2-minute rounds or something like that. It's pretty short, but 2 minutes in boxing is a long time, especially when you can be getting hit, right? So, I decided that there was just going to be no more than that, because I was like, I took a few I got hit a few times pretty hard, but it was just, I realized that if I had fought someone better, and I didn't keep that up, I was going to probably get hurt. So.
Well done you for actually having the guts to get in the ring in the first place. That's fantastic. Well done.
Yeah, something fun to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, you're a best-selling author of the book Social Wealth. Could you tell us about the book and what inspired you to write it?
Well, one of the things, you think about it, the reason that we're here on this earth is for connection. And within that connecting to other people and engaging with them, we want to belong, meaning we want to have that small group or tribe that we feel like that's the reason why we're here, right? And you can have multiple ones. You might have some family ones. You could have a family tribe. You could have a work tribe. You could have, your friends. But that's really why. And I found that, most people just weren't having the success that they really needed to have. And I also found that a lot of times people were really compartmentalized in their life, right? Meaning that they would think about business relationships when they were working and personal relationships when they were not working. But the reality is that, 80% of it's all a crossover, right? And the things that you're doing. And I also found that I was going to different places and doing things that a lot of people were not doing. And I thought, well, if I could put all of these things together for people, help them to really create extraordinary relationships in their life, both personally and professionally, could really do a service for people and make it into being a how-to guide. And so I really went on Amazon and I started looking for books. And basically, I couldn't find any book that was talking about both sides of the relationship. And I found that almost every book out there, was 250, 350 pages long, and it was a lot of fluff inside of there. And I didn't really think it would help people, right? It kind of like, it was one of those things where there's a lot of marketing material, and it wasn't a how-to guide. Like, if you just do these things, they will work for you. And so I said, okay, well, if I can make a book that's around 150 pages long, I can give people really insights, and if they actually just read it and do it, they're going to be successful, because I've done it and I spoke to a lot of people for researching this book, that they're going to be really create the life that they love to lead, and also they can be successful on a professional angle as well. So I covered stuff in the book like how to go to conferences and be successful, right? Because like that again is a separate book, and I thought, well, there's a lot of things that people can do to go to a conference and be way more successful when they're doing it.
And it was a bestseller book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's done well. I've sold like 40,000 copies of the book since September of 2014, and it's got like 135-star reviews. So people who read it get a lot out of it. And I think also a lot of people, it's easy because you can just flip to it if you're going out to an event or something's challenging at work, you need some better communication, or you're trying to connect to people and just look at it and look at a chapter and sort of review things. And so I wanted to make it more like that than I wanted to make it like a traditional longer book.
And becoming a bestseller, was that something that you planned, or was it luck? How did you sort of market and promote your book?
I really planned it out, right? So I looked around and I tried to find a way to market the book effectively, because one of the problems is if you create a book and you're a self-published author, how do you market the book?
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time preparing for launching the book. I looked for like 6 months for people that I thought could help me, and I looked for things that other people were doing. I was listening to podcasts, and so I put together a pretty aggressive plan, and then I found another person named Tyler Wagner, and he, had a book writing and marketing system. And I didn't really use the writing part of it, but I used the marketing part of it. And it really helped me get a system down in my head where I could launch all this stuff and put it all together and make it happen. And that really made the difference. I think if you're launching a book, you have to do everything exceptionally well in the beginning to get the momentum to move it forward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the hard part. That's the hard part of it, because most people think about the writing, and that's the tough part, and it is. But the marketing is absolutely essential. And you have to do it yourself as the author a little bit. You can get other people to help you do a lot of the pieces of it, but you need to go ask for reviews from people. You need to go, get your friends and other people to post it on Facebook or other social media. You got to be really involved in the book and the process of it. And I think a lot of people are not. And that's the difference. And what really helped me was getting the amount of reviews that I got out of the gate from people. And I really worked hard to get reviews. I went out there and I had a process, and I asked people for them, and sent people the book and, did whatever I could because I knew that was going to be the factor. Because if you look at Amazon, I mean, if you've got a lot of reviews, everyone assumes that book's good.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about it. I mean, if you have a book that only has like 10 reviews, or you compare it to a book that has like 120 or 200, you're going to almost pick the book who has 200.
Yeah.
It's just the way that you're going to do it. So it separates you out a lot from other people.
So yeah, it's that social proof, isn't it?
It is. And that social proof is so critical to have, especially in a book, especially if you're not a well-known author.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. And, as our audience to listen to this, why should they read this? What is it? What benefit will they get from this book?
Well, I mean, they're going to be able to have better relationships with people, and they're going to understand what to do and how to do it and where to go. Because the important thing also is not only just, what do you say, it's where do you go. And I found that the key thing about places to go that really you find exceptional people that are really successful is I went to charities and nonprofits, meaning museums, symphony, opera, because that's where wealthy social influencers go, and also young professionals go. That are up and coming, because it's just what people do in the places that attracts people. So if you go to more of those types of events, you're going to meet a great set of people, and also people there have a giving attitude because that's what that's why they're there.
Yes.
So if you can combine those together, you can create some powerful relationships for yourself, and also meet some fantastic people, right? And I met a lot of amazing people just by doing those things. And it's not necessarily that expensive either. Some are more, but there are many ways that you can do it. Volunteer to get into things for free. However you kind of want to engage in that environment. And, and eventually a lot of it, you got to go to a bunch of events and you have in organizations and see which ones that you like and that you enjoy and that you're passionate about. And, you'll find them because there's enough of them out there that you'll find the people you want to be around. And I find that the other problem is that when people think about relationships, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game, meaning you have to meet enough people to know the people that you get along with best. Otherwise, you're just having people in your life out of default, meaning you've got to have someone there. So you'll just have the people that you had from high school or people that you knew, even though they may not really be best suited for you. You don't want to be alone, so you're just going to keep these people in your life that may not actually be beneficial to you anymore.
Yeah, good point.
Awesome. Jason, can you just let us know where we can get that book?
Sure, you can get it on Amazon. So that's where it's sold. So if you just go to Amazon and put social wealth in there, it'll come right up at the top.
Okay, and it's Jason Treu.
Yes, Treu, yes.
Treu, awesome. So, I mean, if someone went out and they picked up your book today and they could only learn one thing from it, what would you like it to be?
I think that you can have incredible relationships and extraordinary relationships in your life. And I think you just have to invest in yourself, invest in other people, and then you just have to put forth effort, right? Because social communication and emotional skill sets are all learned behaviors. So even if you're an introvert, you just have to get out there and start meeting people. And you're not born like this. You learn all these things over time. So while you may think that you don't have great social skills, you can learn them.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like going to the gym. If people who work out and look like they're in shape, for the most part, are people that actually go to the gym.
Yeah.
If you don't go to the gym, maybe you're genetically gifted, but take those people out of it, well, then obviously you're going to be overweight and you're not going to look like you work out. Well, the same thing with your social skills. If you don't get out and use them and practice them, you're not going to get better at them. So that's really the key for people, is if you get out there and practice it, you will get substantially better.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
And it's like anything, isn't it? You have to work at every aspect of your life, and social skills are no different.
They're no different, and that's where a lot of people just think. They look in a room and they see someone who talks to people and it seems so effortless, and they're like, wow, that person's got all these social skills. I wish I could be like that, and I'll never be that good, or I'm an introvert, and how could I possibly do that? Well, all those things are false. But that's just people looking at other people and thinking that they're naturally good like that. They weren't always good like that. They just practiced it more, and they do it a lot more often than other people do. And that's why they're better at it. So if you put your, mind to something, you can be way better at doing it than you were before. It's just that people don't, exercise and flex that muscle. meaning social and communication, emotional skill sets in their life.
Yeah, yeah. On a more personal level, Jason, how do you feel when you don't achieve your goals and objectives?
I always take a look at whatever I'm doing, and I look at myself and I ask myself, one, why was I doing what I was doing? Because I think having intent is really important, and that really will help me understand it. I think, two, I try to learn the lesson. What's the lesson here, right? Why didn't this work out? What happened here? And then I take those into account, and I either shelve the idea or I may pivot, meaning I'll make some changes in it, and ultimately that will lead you to be successful. Because I find what happens with most people is they look in terms of black and white of success and failure, and there's a lot of gray along the process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, whatever you do. And yeah, when I was interviewing people, the book, I interviewed a couple hundred successful entrepreneurs, and I asked them a question. I said, out of every 10 things you do, how many of them work the first time? And with the answers I got back, the range was 5 to 7 things failed for every 10 they tried. So I tried to dig under the covers, and basically they realized that when they were taking leaps of faith and doing new things, they weren't just doing it for the outcome. They were doing it for the experience. And they took that experience and pivoted when they didn't get the outcomes that they wanted to have initially, because they learned from it. And they didn't take it personal. And that really helped them be able to be successful. Because what you'll see if you talk to most people who are successful doing anything, right? And it could be something super small, they will have made little changes along the way. They'll have gotten a sign that said they should have done this or done that, or they could have done this a little bit better. And so ultimately, I think that's how people go about their journey. And I think the people that really get discouraged are looking for some exceptional outcome when they try something the first time. And it's just not that way, right? I mean, I'm sure you can ask yourself, the first time you did the podcast compared to this podcast, I'm sure that you felt a lot more confident, know what you were doing better. I mean, everything could be going through your head right now. That's all completely different. Well, it's the same thing in life, right? And a lot of times when we do things, we don't think about it like that. We look at it in terms of this black and white success or failure, and it's just not the way that really the world works.
Yeah.
And Jason, in your business on a personal level, can you tell us about a time where you've experienced this, where things haven't gone quite to plan? And so tell us about the time and then what you did to turn things around, or what you learned from it. Well,
one of the biggest realizations I had was before I started this business, I had a real corporate job, and I was doing this on the side, and I had a business partner, and I realized at some point that I was being Robin and allowing him to be Batman, and I was doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, but I really wasn't getting sort of the credit. And also, I wasn't really allowing myself to step up and flourish because I was someone else I was kind of letting lead the way. And I realized that, and I wasn't really doing the business that ultimately I wanted to do either. And so what I had to do was really make a decision saying, I've got to believe in myself. I can't go and follow someone else's dream and be a part of someone else's process and really have my voice being silenced. And so, I used that opportunity in order to come out of that and start my own business. But, that was a hard road because it's one of my really good friends, and there was a lot of other challenges as well that came out of that. And so it just was really a difficult time, but ultimately, it was the right move, and it's why I'm here today. But, at that time back then, it seemed like a good maneuver. And I think when I initially did it, it was because I had a job, right, a real job. And then I was doing this on the side, which enabled me to launch a business and see if it was going to work, right, which I'd encourage anyone to do. But at some point, you got to invest and go all in. And that really kind of just helped me. But it was a process. And I learned from it and, then went forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess if I was to have met you then and said, "Are you happy?" I guess I know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I mean, I really probably would have said to you at some points I was, but then there really wasn't, because it just it was kind of like I put myself second, And that's not a way to have and run a business. And you can't be a part of something like that where you feel like that's ultimately the outcome that's going on. And, you know, it was a hard lesson to learn, but it was a necessary lesson for me in order to really launch my business and really allow myself to embrace my abilities and opportunities and skill sets and just do that. But it's, you know, but then you started your entrepreneurial journey, which was, you know, up and down and all over the place. But it's ultimately, you know, what I love to do, and it's exciting. I mean, it's an opportunity to talk to people, you know, like you all, that I would have never got the opportunity to had I been doing that other business where I wasn't front and center on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Sorry, Drew, is you want to ask that? Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, it's fine.
Sorry, right. And in your opinion, Jason, what do you think people fail or maybe even struggle to grow?
Well, I think part of it, again, is that there's this fear, right? I think the two things that enter people's head is the fear of failure and the fear of rejection. And I think those fears really stop people from trying things, embracing it. And also, I think that there is, you want to be right? And that's difficult too, because being right means you're attached to an outcome, right? So perhaps you launch a product and it may not work. Well, then you need to figure out, why didn't that launch work? What about that product did not sell to people? What didn't you do? Maybe you didn't survey your audience. Maybe you don't have the right type of people in your audience, right? But maybe that product could be good in a different environment with different targets of people. So maybe you try to find that, right? Or you realign the product to your audience, right? So I think the problem is that people don't look at the lessons. They just look at the failure, right? They look at the bank account and say, I didn't make that much money on here. And I think that's where people go wrong, is they don't step back and take a look and saying, what should this have taught me? What didn't I do right here? What didn't work? What do I need to do differently the next time around, right? Maybe it's that you didn't have a great sales process or something like that. So you need to investigate a lot of these things, because otherwise then you won't learn. You'll create another product and it won't work, but maybe it's because you didn't have a good marketing plan, a good sales plan. I don't know. But you got to look at everything and ask the questions and really get in there and not look at it in terms of success or failure, but look at the pieces of it and really examine what happened and what you can do differently the next time.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I mean, you shared some of your sort of personal experience there, some of the mistakes that you've made, but I know that you've spoken to and met and worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners sort of throughout your career. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see other people make in their business?
I think that one of the things that's really helped me, you got to figure out who your customer is, right? I mean, who your target customer is. And I think that I was just talking to someone yesterday about this, and that, you know, when you first start in the business, you may not necessarily have a real necessarily defined customer, but I think you need to try to define it the best that you can and even take a guess at it, because then you can really build your business around going after that type of customer and client. And that really helped me, and I had some presuppositions around that, and that was really helpful. And some of it I learned were right, some were wrong, but it really allowed me to hone in and figure out who is my best client on a services side of my business. And that's going to make it much easier for me moving forward, because I'm doing a new website and rebranding, and that's really allowed me to target around that. So I would say that's one of it. I think the other thing too is that people just don't really want to work hard enough. They want to have success overnight. And most people who've been doing this business or in businesses that are doing well, it takes years for them to create a successful business, right? Years and years of time. So, you know, you're not going to get it right overnight. And typically, even people that have done it really well plateau at a certain point, meaning they might be really successful, but their business probably isn't gaining traction at some point, because you're always working to get to the next level. Right? I mean, if you have a business that makes $100,000, at some point, you know, you're going to stall that business out because you need a new idea. You need a way to generate more money or revenue, or whatever it is. So that's going to take time to come up with. So I think business is a series of, you know, you make progress, you end up plateauing, and then you've got to figure out how to get that next level of success going. And it just takes a lot of work, right? And I talk to my friends, and a lot of people just don't want to work that hard these days. And I think that's the key. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves, do whatever it takes, work at 10 o'clock at night, if you're, get up at 6 if you're early, whatever it is. And you just have to be willing to do that. I think the third thing is really getting out there and meeting people, right? And building relationships with other people, because you learn from other people because they've gone through the same thing you have. And I think that's why you're seeing the advent of masterminds popping up a lot more. There are a lot more conferences than ever before. And I think the reason for that is because the value of the relationships and networking the people and being able to have shared experiences and getting help is something that's absolutely critical, right? Because, I was talking to someone else yesterday about this, and I was like, for this year, 5 to 7% of my gross income coming in is being spent on coaching, going to conferences, buying products. I mean, because why do I want to reinvent the wheel? I mean, if someone's built a good process and understand things, I can take all of that and learn it really quickly and not do the same mistakes I normally do. Yeah. And that's right? So you have to invest in yourself as well. I'd say probably the last thing that people don't do, because you can't figure all this stuff out on your own. It just isn't possible. And if you try to do it, it's going to be very, very slow process.
Some really good points there, Jason. Excellent points. Yeah, and I really endorse it. You said there, kind of struck a chord about this I suppose myth about overnight success. So people, I think you're absolutely right. Outsiders looking at these very successful business people and think that happened overnight, and don't really appreciate, think like you said there, the hard work that they put in over a number of years. And I suppose one of our frustrations is that we sometimes meet potential clients and they say, I want to work with you for a couple of months to be successful. And it's like, well, life isn't like that.
It takes a lot longer than a couple of months. It's not going to work like that, right? Yeah. I mean, I think here's the problem with what goes on is we look at the end result with people and we don't look at the process. And it's easy to do that, right? So it's like I have a client of mine who's chairman of a large company, and his company's worth like $1 billion, and everyone goes and looks at it and saying, wow, that person's really successful, and how did he do all that? But the reason he did it is he started the company 15 years ago out of his bedroom and quit a big job in order to do that. But they don't ask the question, well, how was it the first year when you had no money coming in and you're worried that everything's going to fall apart around you and you're having to eat, tacos from basically a Quick Mart, right? Some like really small thing that's opening like for lunch every day because that's all the money you can afford. But people don't want to know that story, and they don't even ask those questions. They look at the end. And so I think that if people are listening to this, you got to realize that for every successful person, like they were at points in their life where they didn't know if they were going to have enough money to make rent, buy food, or whatever's going to happen, or if they could make it one more day. And that's the reality of an entrepreneurial journey. And pretty much any person that's been successful and has been an entrepreneur has been down that road.
Mm. Yeah, great point there. And yeah, absolutely. And the other thing you said there about, again, sadly, so many, I'll go as far to say the majority of entrepreneurs do not invest in themselves. And I find that absolutely shocking. And you quite revealing what you said there. You said 5 to 7% of your income you invest in yourself. Now, I mean, anybody, as you listen to this, think about what it would mean to you if you were just to invest, let's say, half of what Jason just said in yourself, in your own development, or perhaps in the development of your team. What that would mean to your business. There's that great, great, not great. That story of I think a sales director says to the managing director, "We ought to train our guys to make them better salespeople." And the managing director says, "Well, yeah, but what if we train them and they leave us?" And the sales director says, "Yeah, what if we don't train them and they stay with us?" And I thought that kind of just sums it all up. You've got to invest. You've got to make that investment. Longer term, you're going to pay the price, by the way. It's the point I'm making there.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing. Let's just say in that example that you train 10 people and 3 or 4 people leave. Well, but the other people are all training way better salespeople. Way better managers, way better leaders. Okay, well, you win, right? Because that's going to move the bottom line forward.
Yeah.
Typically, the small amount of money that you invest in that training is very little in comparison to the upside that you gain.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't work, and that's the key. And the other thing too is if you're in business for yourself, the reason you invest in yourself is because there's so many other opportunities out there. There's leadership skills, there's management things that you'll never figure out unless you have other people help you, right? And there are things that you can invest in your business to learn more about your own business, right?
Yeah.
And you have to learn from other people that have already done it. That's the key. And those people are going to charge you money for their time.
Yeah.
Right? And you got to do it.
So sorry, I was going to say that I think the key thing to understand here, and I mean we're using the word, but it is an investment. As in, yes, it's going to cost you money. These people, you're going to have to pay someone to teach you, or you're going to have to pay to buy a product. But at the end of the day, it's an investment that you get back. You get a return on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's rare, all the things that I'm doing, right? I mean, I've even bought products that haven't worked for me. But the great thing about that is then I look and say, why didn't they work for me? And then I don't do the same thing over again, right? I mean, I bought a product probably like 6 months ago that didn't work. Why? I was rushing to look. I didn't evaluate it close enough. I didn't look at it, and I was looking at some aspects of it that were incorrect, and I learned from that. So I spent $400 on something, and I didn't really get a lot of value out of it, but I learned moving forward what I did wrong out of it, right? So that actually is going to save me money moving forward because I learned the lesson from it. So even in times where I didn't even get anything out of it, it still taught me something. So I think if you do these things and you find conferences or products or coaching or masterminds or whatever it is, you're going to get a lot out of it, even if it's not perfect, because you'll have learned what you need, and that'll help you find it. But if you don't try, you're then going to have to learn it and master everything in your life from start to finish, which is extremely difficult, extremely hard, and you'll be very lucky if you can do that. Because there are some people that just have different gifts in different areas of their life, and we all can't be good in everything, and we need other people. And I just found that, like this summer I'm going and I'm taking next month a class by this guy Ken Blanchard, and he's got a leadership course called Situational Leadership. That's a pretty well-known leadership course around the world. And I'm going to Harvard Business School to take a 3-day course on leadership and communications and how to, that will help me with my clients and, teach them things. So it's you have to constantly invest and go to things, right? I mean, and if you're at a point where you want to be a leader in your business and be a thought leader and be someone that people go to, is on the cutting edge of what's going on, well, the only way you can stay current with that is to go listen to podcasts, go read, right? Go to conferences, go get coaching or masterminds and do all these things, because you have to learn from all these different sources and people in order to take the next steps forward and to continue to be at that level.
Yeah. So is that Ken Blanchard who wrote? Well, he wrote many books, about 50 books, but 1 Minute Managers is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's his famous book, and he has a company now that delivers this training, and it's used by a lot of managers across the world. I mean, it's a pretty on how to manage different situations and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to it. But again, I wouldn't have thought about taking that course before, but now because of all my clientele and the things that I need, I'm looking at that as an opportunity for maybe there's something here that, I'll be able to take pieces of that and help my clients in their businesses, and as well look at my life and my business and help me as well. But I need to go and attend it, or I'm never going to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. So you walk the talk. Fantastic. I could talk about investing in yourself and training development. I could talk about that all day, but I think we ought to move on. Look, you're a very successful coach, Jason. What's your secret to marketing your business? What do you do to market your business?
It's a lot of referrals. I'm really fortunate. I think, I do get people coming in, but I know now the types of clients I need, and that's really helpful for me. And I think that, the other thing about it is that when I go into a client now that I have, I overinvest in the beginning in people, because I found that if I can get people quick results, right? Because ultimately in a coaching business, it's about behavioral change. So the faster I can get people to change their behaviors and get success with it, the more successful I'm going to be as a coach. So I try to invest in people. So typically in the beginning, like I'll have phone sessions that might last with people, 90 or 120 minutes even in the beginning, where, most people might do 60. But the reason is I'm covering things in depth, and I want them to have these breakthroughs because it's necessary for me to help them see their blind spots and get some evidence that this stuff is working, right, in their head and also just in the real world. And the faster I can do that with people, the more trust they give me and the more they tell me and the more that I can help them. And then what happens is you become a real trusted partner with someone else. And they know that you care. And when people know that you care about them, there's a lot of opportunities. Because people then will refer to you. And when they do, they'll be extremely passionate about it. And, that's also the other thing, too, was in my business, I sat down and thought to myself, okay, ideally, if there was a situation that would be the easiest possibility for me that I can make the most money, really be the most effective in, and probably be the happiest, what would it be? And I thought, well, it would probably be if I could get to a chairman or a CEO of a company, and then I could get referred into the other executives in the company. Because then, if that were the case, I wouldn't have to do any selling because the CEO would be doing all the selling for me.
Yeah.
And that would be the simplest way to get more clients. And that way, they could all see the results amongst each other. And it would basically be every day they'd be talking about the things that they're doing with me and selling me back to each other. So I get in deeper and deeper. And so, I tried that out actually, probably like a year and a half ago. And it's been really effective in my business, right? Because it's way better. If I have 5, 6, 7, 8 clients in a business, it's way easier for me than having 8 different businesses with 1 client each.
Yeah.
Right? But you've got to have, like I said before, in your target customer, you've got to have some premises that you start to try and see where they're going to lead to, right? And so now I know that as I'm, redoing my website, my goal now is to get a couple more CEOs as clients because then I continue to prove that out rather than have all of these clients that are in separate organizations because that's not ultimately going to be in my best interest, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to be successful.
Yeah. And it's funny what you said there. I used to work for FedEx many years ago, 30 years ago. And one thing they always advocated was they called it sell top down. So you go in at the top and get the top person to sell you into other, and that's exactly what you're doing there.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what most coaches, or in fact, I never spoke to a coach who's had what I'm doing, but it's way easier because now all my clients are still paying the same amount of money, whether they were in separate businesses or not. I'm not giving them any discount. So so now if I have 8, like one of my clients here, I have 10 clients in. Well, I'm charging them the same every month as I would do if I had them in 10 separate businesses. So there's no, you see what I'm saying? And the fact that they're all in the same building and working together means they're talking about me with each other all the time, and they're getting results, and they have a common language and communication styles, conflict resolution, negotiation, everything that everyone has. So now it's really hard for them to get me out of there because what's the alternative? Nothing, right? And they had nothing, and it didn't work well. So but if I do it for one person, a lot of times because there's no reinforcement, the executive they're talking next to them isn't working with me, so they don't have the same type of common language and platform that they're working off of. So it's less sticky for me as a coach, as it would be for any coach no matter what they're doing. But people, again, I think it's key is to really ask yourself those tough questions. And who are your clients and what scenario would be the easiest one for you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And Jason, what's been the biggest breakthrough in your business over the past 12 months?
I would really say it's been that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's because it's way easier now since I've figured this out, because I now know that I need my avatar for my client has got to be at a certain level, right? And I have different clients, right? And I take other clients outside of this because I want to have a variety of situations and people, right? The other thing too that I've had is that when I meet someone, I figure out immediately what is the biggest pain they have in their life or major pain points, whether it's personal or professional. Because I'm working with a business person, if they're going through challenges in their home life, right, or their family or with their spouse, if I don't help them fix that problem, I can't help them be successful in business. So whatever it is that the biggest pain that they have, I have to find a way to solve it. Whether I can solve it, whether I have to get them help with other people, that is really something that I found that is a real necessary thing in order to be successful. That's really for anyone, right? Because if you're helping someone, in anything that they're doing, but they're like having some other problems, they will not be that effective, right? So I find, and my other thing for my clients, and the third thing is that when I talk to other executives about people they're managing, I tell them that the people that they're managing in the company, if they're having personal problems, it's affecting your bottom line, and you have to help them, right? If you have managers that are having, that are in conflict at home with their kids or wives or husbands, like that's costing you money, because when they come to work every day, they're not 100% focused and they're not 100% like there because they're worried about what's going on.
Yeah.
So you've got to really step in and help them, right? Support them, talk to them, get to know them, and realize that, the myth about separation between your business and personal life, that's a myth and it doesn't exist, because people take both in both environments. And so you as a manager have great relationships with the people that you work with, know about their lives, and be interested and also help them.
Yeah. Good point. Earlier, Jason, we talked about books. We talked about your successful book. What about books that you've read? What books would you recommend to people listening to this right now?
Sure. So, my favorite author is Brené Brown. It's Brene Brown.
Sorry, can you read that again?
Brene, and her last name is Brown. It's Brené Brown. And she has got some fantastic books on really vulnerability, on authenticity. And I think that helps you on a personal level, but also on a professional level significantly. So she's got, a couple books. The 3 books that she's written are The Gifts of Imperfection, which is a fantastic book, Daring Greatly, and the book she came out with last September called Rising Strong. And they're my, if I only had to read 3 books, those are the books that I would read, because they're for fantastic. Because the problem we all have, and this is what I do with my clients and which really makes the difference, is that most business executive coaches work on external things, right? Like building relationships, like influence, like leadership, like management. But what I do is I work from the inside out, right? Meaning that I work with people and figuring out, what are your blind spots? What's your history? What are the patterns in your own life? What are things that you've been doing, right? What are things that you're really stuck on? What are your limiting beliefs, right? Because ultimately, if you feel like a fraud inside, or you have blind spots that you can't see, they will be affecting all of your external interactions, right? So I call it sort of light touch therapy or psychology that I work people on, because it's necessary for them to really take the next steps forward. And so Brené Brown really covers a lot of those aspects of it, and really talks about shame and the role of shame plays in our life, and the decisions that we make, and our ability why we don't step up, and just a lot of things that really internally go on inside of us that are really important for us to be powerful in the external world. Because once you get all this stuff cleared out inside of you and figure out what's going on, and you can really do some amazing things.
Excellent.
So the other person I like, other book I really like is by a person, Adam Grant. And he wrote a book called Give and Take, and it's about really how giving will get you ahead in business. And I think that's a fantastic book. And the other book too that I've just got, is called The One, or it's The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Yep. So Yep. So those are the ones I'd recommend.
Yeah.
And what about mentors who you've sort of worked with one-on-one or in a group coach program personally? Who's been sort of the what mentors have the biggest influence on your business journey?
You know, I would say I have a coach, and I've worked with him in the past. His name's Mastin Kipp, and it's Mastin, and then last name is Kipp, and he's been on Oprah and worked with Tony Robbins, and he talks. Again, it's a lot of your internal state of your psychology, and really then how you can execute it and really let your gifts shine in the world. And so that was really helpful for me, again, to really take a look at the things that had occurred in my life, like perhaps not forgiving certain people, outsourcing my own power, like what I talked about before, meaning that I was playing Robin in my life with my last business partner. There was a lot of things that really helped me get to the place that I am now. And I thought that was a really important part of what was going on. And yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just books, and a lot of it's just pieces from a lot of different people that I've done and things that I've gone to. And I don't know if there's really anyone else that's really stood out that they alone, because I just take pieces of what people have taught me and teach me along the way, and I put it together.
So you've had a lot of teachers and mentors, and you're well read and so on. So it's a very tough question, but I'm fascinated. What's the biggest lesson you go, this is it? If I do nothing else but I do this, or if anybody else was to do this, you're not going to be too far off.
Well, I think one thing that is the key is people, right? This is all people business. It's all about relationships with other people. And so in order for me to have incredible relationships with other people, I have to have an incredible relationship with myself. Because it doesn't work otherwise, right? So like the old adage we've heard before is that you can't love other people if you don't love yourself, and people go like, yeah, whatever, but it's true. Yeah. And if you don't like yourself, you can't like other people. So you've got to spend time on yourself and understanding your blind spots, getting more clear on who you are, understanding your own past, understanding things that are holding you back in order for you to be successful. And it's just, I've spent years trying to work on this, and it's always a work in progress. But that's the key, is really the relationships. I'd say the other thing, too, is part of mastery is you got to learn from other people. I mean, you can't do this by yourself. I mean, it will not work. You have to go out there and learn. And that's really, honestly, my business has gone way more successful because I've spent money and I've done other stuff and I've learned. And because people have better processes and they're making a lot more money, right? Like one of my coaches, Mastin Kipp's making, low seven figures. Well, I'm not there, but why would I not learn from someone else? And he's done a lot of this, and he's made the mistakes, so I don't need to make them. And when I ask a question, he tells me I don't do it. Well, that just saved me a huge amount of money, more money than I've invested by far. On the things that I've learned and that have saved me money, let alone the things that actually have gained me money. So that's, I would say the two things is you have to, it's a relationships with other people and yourself, and you have to invest and learn how to get shortcuts, how to not make these mistakes. And if people do that, they will be way more. They will be successful. It'd be impossible for them not to be successful. It's just that most people don't do either one, and then they wake up and wonder why things aren't going to do it. And even just like this podcast show, right? Because what you all are doing with this podcast show, and I don't think a lot of people probably think about this, is that you're talking with all these great people, right? And they've done amazing things all over the world. What that does is that you sit back and you hear all these things, and then you notice trends, patterns, ask yourself questions, you talk to each other about things, and you figure out opportunities for products, for other things that you want to do. But you're leveraging the power of a podcast in order to do that. So in essence, you're investing in yourself because this is ongoing learning by talking to all these people. Right now, people who are listening to this probably don't think about that, but that's a huge benefit for you both doing this thing, right? Well, that's the same thing I've been talking about, right? It's a different level investment. Investment's not always money. It may be time, but you've got to do these things in order to get your business to the next level.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation there, Jason, because you're absolutely right, by the way. And we talk about this, and obviously, we record this, and you're absolutely right. I've learned so much just from you. And the thing is, I will listen to this again, and do you know what? I will learn something else on the second time of listening to this. And you're absolutely, it is about learning, it is about that investing. And you've made some really good points there. It isn't just about the money in terms of investment, it is about the time. And I appreciate that most business owners are busy. I mean, we're all busy.
Of course.
But you make, yeah, that's right. And if even if it's in the gym, you listen to this while you're in the gym, on the treadmill, or as you're driving to pick the kids up or whatever. But yeah, you just make use of that time. And you've absolute gems you've shared with us today, Jason. Just been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Jason, where can our listeners go to find out more about what you do?
Sure, you can go to my website, which is beextraordinary.tv. That's beextraordinary.tv, and they're free guides on networking and building a personal brand, how to get unstuck. I have a lot of blogs. There's a lot of videos I've added to YouTube on there recently. You can find a link for my book, Social Wealth, on Amazon. There's coaching and many other things.
Awesome. Great stuff. Again, Jason, thanks ever so much for coming on the show. Really enjoyed having you as a guest. And yeah, again, both me and Terry have learned a lot from you. So yeah, thank you.
Jason, thank you so much.
I appreciate having me on the show.
Great stuff.
Yeah, this is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter. Again, Drew, thank you so much. Jason, thank you so much. We have learned so much. Take care, take action, and be relentless.